Hey guys, it's me, Danny, and Osa. Osa's right here. She's gonna say a few words to this mic. Right, Osa? Music has always been one of those things that has been Eurocentric and Western centric dominated. And the industry that dominates is obviously the American industry, right? But mostly the English speaking industry. So that is why the best musicians are always English speaking, right? Like Michael Jackson, the Beatles, Elvis Presley, now Taylor Swift, Ariana Grande, they are the best of the best, right? As known by the world, right? And the American industry was built like that so that it would be like that because everything is political and the US likes to be number one in everything and they like to be the best in everything so that they can look down on other countries and other societies. And so they make themselves to be best film industry, best music industry, best sports, best everything, right? So forever we've believed that the American music and the English speaking music is the best, and this is where every musician wants to get to. They want to get to the American industry so that they can reach a bigger audience and they can, be considered to be the best, right? First Latin musician to cross markets from the Spanish speaking world to the English, the Anglo music industry was Jose Feliciano. But in the year 2000, Ricky Martin, Puerto Rican idol, came out with a song called Living La Vida Loca. With that song, he kind of broke the world, right? For what the 2000s was. His song was everywhere. Everyone loved it. And so he did what Jose Feliciano had done before him. He crossed the market from Spanish speaking to the Anglo American industry because they couldn't ignore him because his song was everywhere. Everyone loved the song Living La Vida Loca. So Ricky got nominated for 3 Grammys that year. And the Grammys obviously are the best. They're only given to the American musicians, right? They are given to the best of the best, right? So it's like the most prestigious award that any musician can get, right? Is a Grammy. Well, Ricky Martin got nominated in the year 2000 for 3 categories at the Grammys for Living La Vida Loca. He got nominated for Record of the Year, Song of the Year, and Best Male Pop Vocals. And at this point, the Grammys and the American music industry realized that it could happen again. Another musician could cross the market in such a big way that they wouldn't be able to ignore him and they would have to nominate him again. Him or her, nominate them again, right? For the best categories in their music awards, right? So instead of letting that happen, what they did was in their Anglo Grammys ceremony, they created 3 categories. They created Best Latin Pop Album, they created Best Album in Music, in Mexican Music, and they created Best Album in Música Urbana, right, which is more Caribbean. And they created like a lot of other smaller categories like Best Tropical. Instead of letting the Spanish speaking artists compete in the big categories of the Grammys, they created these categories to kind of marginalize them, right? To say, yes, you can be big, you can compete, but in your own categories. You're not going to compete in our categories because then what if they win? You're going to be as big as the English speaking musicians. And then that means that a Latin brown musician is going to be as good as our music artists. And they just couldn't let that happen. So they created these categories to kind of keep them in their place and have them compete, but in their music industry, not the American music industry. What is even funnier is that whoever wins one of these Anglo American Grammys in the Spanish speaking industry, they're considered to be the best of the best, right? They have done a great achievement by winning one of these Grammys. But these Grammys are not even broadcasted in the official ceremony that happens in the Grammys. Like, these are not shown in TV. There is a special ceremony that is made for these musicians that is not put on TV. It's nothing big. It's just they go and they get their Grammy and that's it, right? They don't even get the recognition that they deserve, right, for winning their Grammy. I bet most Americans don't even know that these Grammys exist. The Grammys want it like that. They don't want you to know that there are other artists that don't speak English that are considered to be as good to win a Grammy. And I think in the 2000s that was allowed to happen because, well, for once the industry was a lot tighter, right? The people that put the rules were kind of really in charge. And I think the thing that changed the whole game was the internet. You didn't need it Universal Music, you didn't need it Warner Music anymore to distribute your music. Now you could put it on the internet and you could go viral and everyone would know of you without having the need of these people that control the industry. That is one of the only good things of globalization, I think, is that you can cross markets without the need of these people that put the rules that don't let you be bigger than what you could be, you know? The next artist to cross the market was Shakira, but Shakira had to make some big changes to her music because when Shakira started in the Latin music industry, she was completely different. And then she had to start making music that would be comfortable for the Americans to listen to. She translated many of her songs and she would create songs in Spanish and then she would create translations of her songs so that the Americans could listen to it, so that the Americans could be comfortable with it and still feel like they were the best of the best. The same thing happened later with Enrique Iglesias. Enrique Iglesias started his career by singing ballads in Spanish. And later he changed to make music that would feel comfortable for the Americans. Although I will say, I think a big thing that happened to Enrique Iglesias was that he changed his style so that he wouldn't resemble his father's because he was trying to get away from his father as much as he could and he was trying to find his own fame. So, and because his father is a famous balladist, he tried to get as rid of that as possible. And I do miss balladist Enrique Iglesias, but I respect his decision. But I think it's a good mixture of both him wanting to get into the American industry and him trying to get away from his father, right? And then Pitbull was also someone that started in the música urbana with reggaeton and then later did the change to make music that would be mostly in English and would be mostly liked by the Anglo American listeners, right? So he changed his style to be liked and to be able to break into the industry, and he has never even won a Grammy. Like, they still look down on these artists. None of these people, not Shakira, not Enrique Iglesias, not Pitbull, have won a one of the big categories of the American Grammys. In the year 2000, they came out with the Latin Grammys, and the Latin Grammys are like the Grammys, but for Latin music. They're considered to be very prestigious, but it's only for the Latin speaking categories: Portuguese, Spanish. I don't think French, just Portuguese and Spanish, actually. And again, it's a way to marginalize musicians. It's a way to keep them in their place. You win a Grammy, but you win your Latin Grammy for your people, Spanish speaking people. You're not allowed to compete with the Americans because then what happens if a Spanish speaking musician wins an American Grammy? That means that they're as good as an American musician, and that just can't happen. You know, that is not possible. The Americans are the only ones that are allowed to be the best in the world. And they have conditioned their listeners, they have conditioned the Americans to think that their music is the best in the world, the only in the world. So when Americans listen to music that is not in English, it makes them uncomfortable because they have never been exposed to other music, and that is thanks to their industry, to their music industry, that has done this to them. But now, because of the internet, that has changed a lot. Musicians get a higher opportunity of crossing markets, of being liked globally, without the need of having the industry control them. And obviously, the next Latin artist that this has happened to is Bad Bunny, who broke it huge. He became known worldwide. He didn't just cross the market from from Spanish music to English music. He just is kind of known all over the world, and that is why they couldn't stop him from getting nominated to the American Grammy for Best Album and winning it, because it would have taken away from the credibility of the Grammys if they didn't recognize that his album, Debí Tirar Más Fotos, was the best in the world and the most listened in the world. It was like obvious. Um, but they went on to create a category for Bad Bunny as well, for Best Latin Music. That now this will be a category that gets broadcasted in the Grammys or whatever, right? But this was only created after Bad Bunny became so big. And then what happened last week was that they created, because BTS has also been submitting music to get nominated for a Grammy, but in the big categories: best recording, best album, best, uh, all of those categories. And so it seems like they're on the path of the Grammys are going to have to nominate them, because it is obvious that they are big worldwide. And what happened was that the Grammys came up with this category of best Asian pop music category for BTS, to have them not compete with the Americans in the big categories, but instead to have them compete in their own categories. And then what happened was that BTS, all the members, all seven of the members of BTS, came out with stories in their Instagram and in their social media, announcing that they would not submit for the Grammys because of this category that they had created for Asian music. And basically what they said is, we're not going to let you marginalize us into a category instead of letting us compete in the other categories of the Grammys. And basically, what they are doing with this is boycotting the Grammys, to not let them be marginalized into making a smaller category for them, just so that they can compete with the big American artists. And the Grammys, the CEO of the Grammys came out and said, "Well, um, we're so sorry that BTS has made this decision, but we will respect it, and we're not going to do anything about it." And they deleted all history of BTS in the Grammys from like all their online, their page, their um their web page, and all their content online. And then the creator of this category came out and said, well, we weren't trying to make them aside or marginalize them, we were just trying to give the opportunity um to Asian musicians to be considered for a Grammy. Well, let them be considered. Let them be considered in these categories. Let them compete with the other artists. Why not? I don't understand why there's a need to create separate categories for these artists, right? I think the Latin artists didn't have a choice or a chance to boycott or say, we're actually not going to accept this. They had to accept it, because otherwise they wouldn't have a music career, right? Because at that point, the American industry was the one making the rules and the one deciding who was going to be famous and who wasn't, right? So they only got the chance to like say, okay, whatever, we'll let this happen. But it is so nice and so refreshing to have someone go against the American industry and to say, we're not going to let this happen. We are not going to allow the American industry to marginalize us and to say that we're not good enough to compete in the big categories of these awards of the Grammys. And basically what they said is we're actually bigger than the Grammys, and the Grammys need us. We don't need the Grammys. And that is kind of true. Right now all of the fans of BTS are boycotting the Grammys, and they don't need the Grammys. And none of us need the Grammys. None of us non-English speakers need the approval um, of the English speaking industry to know how good we are. I hope the Americans are uncomfortable. I hope the Americans now have to listen to music that is not in their own language, the same way we've all had to listen to English music all of our lives, because that is what gets fed to us, you know? Now it's time to feed them some music in another language. And here is why I think they're marginalizing music from other countries and from other languages. When Adele became super big and she became a big deal, she got nominated for all the Grammys. She got nominated for all these categories. And Adele is British. She's not American. She is, however, English speaking. We also consider the Beatles to be the best, even though they're not American, but they are English speakers. So it is clear that right now this fight is to keep the non-English speakers to the side so they don't compete with the English speaking industry, and they don't show that there can be someone that is better than the Western culture and the Eurocentric culture. We can't let that happen anymore. I am here for BTS, and I'll be army if I have to be for them, so that they can have the support they need to stick it to the Grammys and to stick it to the American culture and to the European centric culture.